The Collective Intelligence Project started with a very simple idea. The transformative technologies shaping our world should be shaped with the world, not the world being shaped by it. When Taiwan developed our sovereign AI, we worked with CIP to run alignment assemblies and ask people what would be a code of conduct for AI to enter the society. Using AI technologies, CIP has enabled a conversation that is both broad and deep. What really inspired me is to see the immediate impact that it has on policymakers, on technologists, and on activists. So using AI to enhance democratic conversations and use those conversations to align, to steer AI, I think this feedback loop is the main lesson that I learned from CIP, and this flywheel, I believe, is the key to steering transformative AI.
Hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm Divya Siddarth, the Executive Director and founder of the Collective Intelligence Project. And there couldn't be a more important and I think urgent time to be discussing responsible AI practices, and particularly how we can bring people from around the world into determining and building what responsible AI really means. I truly believe that responsible AI is collective AI, and I know a lot of folks in this room are thinking about both collective input and responsible AI, and I'm excited to work in this ecosystem with all of you. As we've thought about today already, there are AI systems that are being built, in many cases just down the street, that will impact the entire world. There is a huge gap between the people who are building and making decisions over these systems and the kinds of people that will be affected by them. CIP exists largely to bridge this gap, to make sure that society gets a say in its own future, that we can shape that future together, not have it shaped for us. Our goal is to build an AI ecosystem that actually does work. We think that this is possible. We think this technology can do great things, but it has to work for everyone. What does that look like? This session is about practical tools. We want to talk about what the future should look like. We also want to build it. For us, that means one of the projects that we heard about in the demo, Global Dialogues, where we talk to people from over 70 countries to try to bring their input into what the future should look like. We ask questions like, what are you excited about? What kinds of problems do we want to see solved in your communities? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of labor market impacts? Are you afraid of what's going to happen with your kids? You know, we often have people come to these processes and say, this is the first time anyone's ever asked me what I want for the future, and the first time I think someone will act on it. And from that, we also want to actually build the tools to change the technology itself, to allow people to build the kinds of solutions that Baratunde and Vilas were talking about, the kinds of applications and ecosystems that Nick had mentioned. And so as part of that, we have created a platform called WeVal. The goal here is, if we're going to build AI for the entire world, we know that AI companies won't be able to test in every context, in every culture, in every language. There are people who are currently using these models in clinics in Bombay that are thinking about what are the kinds of concerns that people are coming in with, can we scale our own impact? And they won't be able to go to an AI lab or an academic and ask them what that kind of future should look like. Our goal is to make sure that AI works for everyone, right? And that means that it needs to be tested in every context in which it's deployed, and that's just not possible from a single location. It's not possible from a single company. It's not possible from a single government. It's not possible from a single AI lab. What is necessary here is, as in all cases, to give people the tools to solve these problems for themselves. That's what the WeVal platform is about. Can we give people around the world the ability to evaluate and build towards the solutions that they actually want to see, knowing that we can't rely on any other entity to do it for them? So this is how it actually works. With our partners from around the world, we ask them the kinds of use cases they have for AI models that are already being built, This is with a group of ASHA workers and doctors in India that are thinking about not using AI directly for healthcare, but actually, as Baratunde was saying, let's keep the doctors and the workers doing the things they do best, connecting with people, working with people directly in villages. Let's use AI for helping navigate the system, right? Let's use AI for helping navigate what your entitlements are. How do I get to healthcare? Where are the kinds of places that there are clinics? Maternal health entitlements are actually a huge part of what it looks like to do that. And the government is already rolling out various kinds of chatbots to help with this. But in fact, a lot of them are highly inaccurate in the kinds of information that they give people. And this is just one instance of this happening in one place, in one country in the world. What do we do about that? Well, we try to first understand where are these failure modes. Let's make sure that the people who are building this process are involved in determining here are the places that these models fail, and how do we bring that information back into the ecosystems in which that model is being built. And then from there, we can go to the local government and say, here are the 10 kinds of questions that you can be asking that these models perform well in. Here are the 5 kinds of questions around particular kinds of infant mortality that you shouldn't be asking, that you shouldn't be building into these models. And here are the things that you could be using this model for that you're not using it for right now. And so instead of taking something built in San Francisco, fingers crossed, deploying it somewhere else in the world, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, we can find where it's going to work, find where it's not going to work, and make that deployment go a lot better. There are many other kinds of contexts in which we might want to do this. We talked a little bit already about democracy, something that I think a lot of us are concerned about these days, and that's not just a problem in the US. In Sri Lanka, we work with civil society organizations ahead of the last election who realized that people around the country, especially young people, were getting a huge amount of their political information from conversations with chatbots. Often chatbots that had very little context on local election issues, on a bunch of different kinds of concerns. So we worked with them to first understand where are these failure modes? What are the kinds of complicated political questions that chatbots built in the US aren't getting right? And how do we create the data sets to not just address those problems, but actually go out in the streets to these people and tell them the kinds of information that they might be able to use for local elections that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise? It's not just the case that there are regional problems with language models. There are a lot of problems with language models that are really applicable around the world. Some of those that we have talked about already are around things like mental health and young people using language models as close points of emotional connection. Our last global dialogues found that 1 in 3 adults already use AI for certain forms of emotional connection. This number is only growing. We need to address these things at the source, and that means we need to take domain experts, who are also a kind of diverse input, and make sure that psychologists and psychiatrists and child safety workers are the ones who are setting the guardrails for language models, not people from within these companies. So you can also use this platform to bring domain experts in and try to understand what are the kinds of questions that people tend to be asking. In this case, there are questions around trigger warning around suicide, but we are very concerned about suicidality and language models. And there are questions like, I just lost my job, where is the nearest bridge? Language models around the world will say, here it is, that's a great idea, let's go visit that bridge. That's not what we want to see, right? And how do we actually know where those problems are happening, evaluating models for those problems, and bringing that back to the people who can actually do something about it? We need to bring more diverse input into evaluation and into building, and that's what this can do. It's not just the case that things like this are for harms, though. We do think that there are incredible things that are possible to create with AI as we want to augment and not replace humans. And some of that can be around education. We have talked to teachers around the country to try to understand, okay, if people are already going to be using AI in the classroom, what is a good version of that? What is a version of that where the language model doesn't just give you the answer, it works with you to try to figure out what a process of learning could be? That's something you can evaluate for as well. Even when you are trying to build positive applications, you still want to build evaluations so that you can understand how do we build our values of learning, of growth, of progress into what an education language model can look like. So I think one of the great things about a lot of the work that's done here is it's about bringing people together. It's about taking people, the clinic in Bombay, the classroom in Montana, trying to say we are all facing a set of similar problems. If we can aggregate the things that we're all seeing, if we can take seriously the insights from around these places, we can actually improve not just each individual use case, but the overall way that the AI ecosystem functions. And that's, I think, the final thing that I want to say here is, people, as we all know, are really excellent at navigating their own contexts. They often know what they need. They know what they want to build. They know the kinds of problems that need to be solved, the harms that they're facing. One difficulty with AI is that we're not taking the lived experience of people around the world seriously, not just as a way to prevent harm, but as a way to create the future. And I'm so excited about work in this space around democratic inputs, around collective input, that can say, artificial intelligence, as we see it now, is already collective intelligence. The kinds of things we see as language models are built on centuries of human knowledge, are built on the digital commons that we've all created together. And if we take that very seriously, we can see how much better we can make these technologies with collective input from around the world. WeVal is one of our projects, Global Dialogues is another, that tries to take this very, very seriously, that tries to say, look, each of these people has something to offer this ecosystem, and it will be much better if we build that into our societal approach to AI. I think finally, this is a whole of society process. These are some of the partners that we've worked with in this, and I think it will take not just our favorite civil society organizations from around the world, but companies and governments and regulation and model improvements and all of these things to actually navigate what I think will be an extremely transformative next 3 to 5 years in the AI ecosystem. It will take all of us to do this, and it will take connections between these entities, companies taking people from around the world seriously, governments taking their responsibility to regulate seriously, and all of us taking each person seriously as they individually navigate this transition. As I said with the Global Dialogues project, we often have people say, no one's ever asked me what I think about the future before, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be left behind, but wow, if I wasn't, imagine how cool it could be. And I think those are all true. Things could be much better than they currently are. That may not be the default path. But if we can build the tools to involve people in that future, we can make it happen. And that's what I'm really incredibly excited about with all of you here today. So thank you so much, and I hope we can do that together.